All right, let's get this party started. So I'm with yet another individual that needs no explanation within the roofing industry. Again, a lot of people could agree with that. Mr. Hudson Whitten, how we doing today?
Doing wonderful. How about yourself?
Always doing incredible, brother, especially when I'm hanging with you. So Hudson's been a partner of mine now for going on how long?
October will be 3 years.
October will be 3 years. Wow, time flies.
Right.
And it just keeps getting better and better. We actually just had our record month. I think we did a little under 2 million or something for the month.
1.6.
1.6. We're inching up. We're inching up. If you're a rounder, you can round it up. We still got, is today August 1st? Well, yeah.
It's August 1st. The
It's
month
done.
is closed.
The month is closed. Well, I'm super pumped to have Hudson on this podcast. Our first ever podcast was together. And our goal was to get more consistent with it. And we're getting consistent. And the reason why we want to get consistent is just continue to share knowledge, share experiences, because I believe two ways that you can learn, and Hudson knows this as well, is through stories and through experience. And so with what we've done over the 3 years together and then the 12 years prior to that, Hudson and what he's done in the industry is just phenomenal. So talking about the prior, first and foremost, when you first, kind of put your toe into the water to test out this whole roofing industry, you worked for True Fast, correct?
Well, there was a job before that, which I don't even think you know about it. And it was kind of chuck and buck in the back of your truck.
Well, let's hear about that.
Yeah. It was a storm chaser. And I was in between jobs. I had just quit working out at Samsung. And I was trying to figure out what I needed to do. And I applied for a job, went in, 1099 sales rep. It was a guy in from Oklahoma that was working at Texas Storm towards the end of, I think it was 2011 or 2012. 2012, yeah. And just threw a ladder in the back of my truck, took me out to a neighborhood, and he was like, just need you to knock on these doors. Here's a pitch skid. Use this, get up on the roof, take some pictures, sell a roof. I think I sold 2 roofs in the course of like a month, and I had no clue what I was doing. So that was my introduction to roofing. And then from there, I took a step back and I met a buddy, John Doan, with True Fast, who was an outside sales rep. And True Fast is one of the last American manufacturers for fasteners. So just screws that you stick in the roofs, right, to hold down roof assemblies. So John kind of introduced me, I guess, into roofing outside of that sales experience, which was terrible to begin with.
Yeah.
It scared me immediately, right?
What took you nationwide, though?
Well, True Fast took me nationwide. At that time, John was pretty much traveling around the country being a field technician, so to speak, an outside sales rep. And he needed help with the adhesive test. We were doing like Dow Chemical Instastick. It's a 1-part, pretty much adhesive. Everything's mixtured in the tank. We were doing adhesion test with like this big tripod that we would have to travel around, or we were doing fastener test, which we would basically just stick a screw into the roof system through the substrate or the decking, if you will. From there, pull on that to generate a re-roof pattern. We were doing everything with Versico, Mulehide, Carlisle, John Mansfield, Suprema, Firestone, you name it. And we were doing everything from a mechanical fasten system to a base sheet fastener system or adhesion. Yeah.
So in the event when you work for someone like True Fast as a technician specialist, we all know that when it comes to commercial roofing, it's all about proper flashing, all about following manufacturer specs. So being that technician and seeing all these installs, you think it's just increased your knowledge over those years through experience to know what you know today?
Yeah, I think so, because the roofs that we would actually cut in to do some of these adhesion tests or mechanically fastened pull tests, we saw everything from Tectum. We saw gypsum, which basically has like a chicken mesh, and it's this thick pour of gypsum. Like the Louisiana courthouse is about 6 inches of gypsum, which you would be surprised that it's even standing today. It allowed me to understand the technical assembly of pretty much any flat roof, and to also be able to work with really amazing people out in the field, contractors that I was working with, what they do, how they install their roof systems, what crews they use. So it just gave me a vast knowledge in roofing overall. So yeah, it made me very confident on commercial flat roofing.
So being confident in commercial flat roofing, when you get up on a roof system, what do you think the most important factor is? The first thought that goes through your head when looking at that roof system?
Well, for me, I look at how the water sheds, number one, whether we have ponding issues, and then it really goes down to flashing at that point. So, and what I mean by flashing, roof to wall flashing, termination flashing, curb flashing, and then from there, penetrations. But yeah, ponding and how the water is flowing off the roof is the number one thing that I look at.
Do you see a lot of issues with penetrations on flat roof systems? Give examples of like penetrations.
So penetration would be a thermal bridge through the substrate through the roof system. So say we have a TPO roof system, which is a single ply membrane. So it's basically a sheet. All right. So if we looked at that sheet, this would be a vent that's going through the roof decking, whatever recovery board is there, our finished product, say TPO. And so we got PVC. We could also have a vent through a roof, an aluminum one-way vent. You could have some sort of exhaust vent going through it. Generally on flat roofs, majority of the time when you have exhaust vent, a curb is built up with at least a 6-inch minimum, and then you have a metal caching. So if we're looking at like a penetration, majority of the time, our issue is we'll see a TPO boot, say on a TPO roof system, but we don't see a TPO clamp ring with water cut off and then all-purpose sealant set on the top. So it's not installed to manufacturer specifications. So generally, that's majority of the issue that I see on that. We don't have a clamp ring installed, or it's not an associated TPO boot. They did it with a non-reinforced flashing. So basically a non-reinforced flashing is a TPO membrane that just does not have the backer on it. It's more malleable to where it can bend around a plumbing stack. So it's just not seeing manufacturer specifications on roof systems 9 times out of 10 is the issue.
And that's one thing as far as manufacturer specs and the knowledge of understanding it that sets you apart from a lot of other professionals in the industry. But what other elements set you apart from other people? Like not just anyone can do commercial roofing. There's some boxes that have to be checked in order to properly take care of that client, correct?
Yeah, for sure. So insurance coverages are the number one, whether you can work on it, because like you can have a really high insurance policy, but you may not be able to work with HOAs. So it's ensuring that you have the correct coverages to be able to touch those risk systems. That's the main thing that kind of sets contractors apart. Outside of that, what I've kind of learned in the field as far as technical assembly, I can pretty much cut into any roof, understand what I'm looking at. And if I don't understand what I'm looking at, reach out to the resources that I have and send a picture. Hey, I'm seeing A, B, and C. I think it's this. What do you think? And I could have somebody like Frank Helm that used to work at Mulehide sit there, turn around and say, oh, this is this, and this. You know, Jay Rodriguez at Versco has been around forever. So it's about having amazing people and resources around you to be able to call on in a fast manner to be able to add value to the customer.
And then having those relationships, understanding manufacturers and their products, what's the power of different certifications?
Yeah, so certifications, like you can, so let's use a couple different examples. Like right now, we're making a heavy push on GAF. We have a certain quota that we need to make for GAF in order to keep our warranty. But if we were entering a relationship with GAF, we could actually reach out to them, have them go and inspect some of our past work. Say we did a Mulehide roof, say we did a Versico roof. They would look for that. And what they're looking for is, are you installing this roof system manufacturer specification? And then, you know, it can get a little tricky. Some sales reps are not going to let you use a recovery board that is not private labeled through, say, Versico or private labeled through GAF. So how are you building the roof system? What products are you using from a roof system? And are you installing those products to manufacturer specification? So the roofs that we're installing, can we walk away from and they're going to last 20 years?
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the exciting thing is like most people want to get in and get out and get the job done. But once you take that step back, dot your I's, cross your T's, and really follow those specs, assuring that the specs are followed properly is what then confirms the warranty for the owner, correct? So
yeah, correct.
There's a wide importance to make sure that when you are selecting a commercial contractor, that they do have certifications and they do understand assembly.
For sure.
That's amazing. So talking about all these different manufacturers, what is your overall favorite product when it comes to commercial roofing that you've seen that you feel is the best success rate? That's one of the best candidates that you've used over a period of time?
So, I mean, if it was one specific product, it would be something that we use for repairs, and it would be like a Carniflex type product. Now, there's other products that rival that. I'll just give Carnac a shout out on that. But it would be a fluid applied system that we're able to go out, whether no matter what the conditions are, apply a flashing grade sealant around something and walk away from it, and it lasts, right? And it can give temporary support and it can give permanent support. So I'd say fluid applied systems, tailing into that, is something that we haven't made a huge push on. We're building the infrastructure to be able to make a big push on it. But I really, really like the product. I like the fact that we're not having to remove a lot of and create a lot of waste on roof systems. I like we're able to use the existing roof system in order to restore it and create longevity in that roof system. So fluid applied systems.
We talk about longevity. A lot of individuals in our industry are full roof junkies. It's all they want to do. That's all they really know. It's kind of the wheelhouse. I mean, it just is what it is. Talk to me about preventative maintenance and the power of preventative maintenance for a property owner who has a large building, who's incurring some issues. What were your steps be in order to provide value to that owner? And you said, long life, like expand the life of that roof system. What would you do, and what are the steps you would take?
Yeah, so first thing, like roofing a lot of the times, and I won't say this is for every case, but it's a deferred maintenance. It's out of sight, out of mind. You're going to be reactive in the state if you're an owner. So you're reaching out to somebody because you're seeing an ongoing leak. We would like to step in with an owner and create a relationship to where they can use our preventative maintenance, write it off at the end of the year as tax incentive, right? So from there, we'll go in, inspect the roof system. We'll provide documentation showing a thorough inspection from edge metal all the way through how the roof is functioning, how the water is draining on the roof, any deficiencies that we see in that, any safety issues that we see on the roof system, and then provide them that documentation. And we would like to do anywhere from a 1, 2, 3, 5-year contract on that roof to where we can maintain the roof system. We can put a set of eyes on the roof biannually or annually, depending on the conditions and where it's at. Whether trees are close to the building or not, that would be a biannual maintenance in order for us on the seasons to clean out the gutters and everything else. But it's really being able to show the owner what's going on the roof, any defects that we see in it, or how we can create longevity in the current roof system to extend that life. So it's just adding value by, hey, here's visually what's going on your roof. These are some things that we see. You're not an immediate need for this, but this could be an issue down the road. Allow us to enter into a contract with you, provide maintenance on this building, and use this and write it off at the end of the year. You're going to be spending this money down the road if you don't do this. So might as well spend it here and create longevity in your property.
Yeah, and in doing that and creating that longevity, just having the set of eyes on a yearly inspection is super powerful. I mean, Eddie mentioned it in one of our last podcasts, is a lot of secondary trades that get up on the roof from roof traffic. I mean, what have you experienced there? Have you seen some horror stories with people not being attentive to the roof system, and then there's it allows for, issues down the road?
Yeah, I mean, we just did an inspection in Pearland. Honestly, a buddy of yours, Cody, inspected it for us, and they're like, we got an ongoing issue. We get up on top of the roof, and the whole AC unit is dismantled, right? Water is just pretty much entering the side of the AC unit, flowing down through the ducts, and this is because a trade got up there, removed a panel, and never put the panel back up there. And when you remove the panel, a storm came through, blew the panel off the roof, so now we got to find a replacement panel for that part. Or either maybe a storm took it off, but it literally looks like the panel was set. You can see the mark that it was sitting down for a while, and now the panel's gone. So the other thing that we see a lot of is AC personnel will get up there. They got to do a little bit of welding on copper fittings, anything else, or soldering for that matter, and they won't have a slip cover that they put down. Any piece of molten metal will fall down and literally just go right through a single ply membrane, go all the way down to the recovery board. And it may be a fine hole that you can barely see. You see a little bit of black, but it's not white anymore, right? So we see a lot of that. And then people moving tools on and off the roof. Maybe their wheel has a bit of dirt or something that gets caught in. The wheel hangs up, and then they're dragging the wheel versus the wheel rolling. We'll see it scuff and rip. And then on older roof systems, PVC, TPO, they get to a point, and if you're a roofer, when you walk on them, you'll hear them start to crack, right? If we're dragging tools on roof systems like that towards the end of their life, yeah, we're going to be causing damage on it. So it's people not caring when they get up on a roof. And then the other thing, some people don't have the awareness of what they need whenever walking on a commercial flat roof.
I love that. So we've talked a lot about commercial. Would you say there's a huge divide between a residential roofing market and a commercial roofing market?
I mean, you're flashing water, right? Or with the flat roof, you're ensuring that there's a proper slope to flash the water. I would just say there is knowledge and expertise that needs to go into commercial roofing versus residential roofing. Number one, dollar amounts, insurance requirements on that. If you have a mistake on a commercial building and you have millions of dollars worth of equipment in that building space, yeah, you're going to be liable for that. So with residential, the liability is not as bad. Now, there are some clients that we've worked with, which it could be deemed as big as a commercial building, especially some of the projects we're doing. But I would say the knowledge is the biggest divide between residential and commercial roofing. We can teach a sales rep with our platforms and some of our Sam Tagger training that we have and video content to be out and successfully sell. I would say to be door knocking within 2 weeks and successfully being able to sell a product within a month. No. It'd be kind of thorough. With commercial roofing, I've been building my knowledge for over 15 years, and there's still things that I learned, even being alongside Eddie. Like Eddie was raised up in the commercial roofing space. I'm sure there would be some things that I've seen in my space that may mirror that to Eddie as well. You're always learning on commercial buildings. So I would say knowledge would be the biggest divide.
And talk about knowledge. I think, as Tony said, he said applied knowledge is everything, but access to knowledge is a whole different thing. So talk about cool roofs real quick and give some insight on our education systems, processes, and just our overall, I guess you like to say, machine that we have here.
Yeah, so Cool Roofs has been ever evolving since I came on. We have an office location now. Me and you work hand in hand. Memphis has an office location. And we have a few other branches, like bringing on Joseph was like a huge spark to our company down in San Antonio. With that being said, we were able to onboard somebody like a Joseph due to our CRM that has been built with Trey. It allows us to operate pretty much anywhere in the world. Now, we use a Job Nimbus platform, but this is a Job Nimbus on steroids that would rival an AccuLinks. So I would say from our inspection process, the tools and resources that we have for sales personnel to go out and to be able to sell at a very high level and create value to a customer is, bar none, the best that I've seen. Now, there may be some other companies out there that are doing it. I haven't personally seen that. I never experienced it with anybody else outside of Cool Roofs. And that has with the working genius that's been inside Trey's head that came out into Job Nimbus. So basically, we're able to provide a copy of a COI, a list of references prior to showing up to build trust with that customer. We meet with a customer. At that point, we ensure that they have our CRI before we get up on the roof system. We go into our company CAM integration. We're able to provide a PDF copy of everything that's going on that roof system and in real time be able to present that within 15 to 30 minutes, depending on how long the inspection takes. And go over an educated conversation with the homeowner and then have a presentation packet that we're going through. Now, I've seen a million different presentation packets. What you're buying at the end of the day is the knowledge of the sales personnel that's on your job site and the processes that the company use for success in the re-roof, right? With that being said, how we're able to provide value to a customer instantly, educate them on the re-roof process. There's so many different customers that I meet on a day-to-day basis, and I know I implemented this and then you started implementing the folder and now we use it as a company. Even if a customer doesn't want me to get on a roof nowadays, I'll go through the re-roof process if I know their roof is damaged, just to say, hey, if somebody hasn't done this before, this is the process. Yeah. This is what you need to look for. They need to be removing down to the decking. This is why they need to be removing down to the decking. Your only out-of-pocket expense should be your deductible if you're going through the insurance process. Say it's a cash estimate. How can we create value on that cash estimate? So the tools that we have in place allow me to be able to educate a customer at a very, very high level. At the same time, each individual sales rep that comes into cool roofs through the onboarding process, we teach them from day one, go ahead and run through our 360 platform, right? So that's education level on the 360. At that point, once you finish that, go ahead and sign our contracts. We're going to get you an email. We're going to go ahead and onboard you. From there, we start our Sam Taggart training, which from there, that'll teach you everything from rake metal, eave metal. It'll teach you a gable roof. So those videos and the content that we have for somebody, even if they're just stepping in off the street, educates them at a very high level. And then from there, it's just the proper leadership and grabbing somebody, putting them out in the field, putting them in place with a professional in order for them to learn, and then finding out their strengths, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's something that we do at a very high level. The other thing is it's an ever-evolving game. Like we looked at Jared, we looked at Izzy. If we looked at Destin right now, we're always evolving, trying to put people in a place for success.
Yeah, and that's overall leadership. I mean, leadership is attracting individuals as far as recruiting. So you attract who it is that you are, but our job as leaders is to properly position that person for success. And a big example that we've always talked about is like if you have an all-star basketball team and you switch the positions of the players, you now put your post as the point guard and your point guard as a post, and you play a competitive team, you're probably not going to excel at the level that you would if all the players are in the proper position. So it's just like constant evolution of finding the working genius of the guys that we work with and positioning them properly to assure their success. And so that's what's phenomenal about our system that I love is our 360 platform is really the divide of education between like, hey, are you motivated and committed, or are you just motivated?
Right.
Because those who don't finish that, we have a policy where it's like, hey man, like we're happy to know that you're motivated to make a change in your life and create some significant income with the systems and processes and opportunity we built. But if you can't complete that one chapter that we offer to you, then we won't commit to you because you're not committed. And so that's just a cool divide of things that we've put together that Trey, you said his working genius, systems, processes, and everything. I mean, we built a freaking machine here and it's humming. And so having your leadership and what it is that you do on a day-to-day, I like to talk about specialty products because, you know, we can keep climbing this ladder of professionalism. You know, we do commercial, we do multifamily. There's a lot of stuff that we do as a firm that sets us apart from other companies. So I want to talk about, I'm just going to throw a line out there. Let's talk about Da Vinci. You know, we just finished an unbelievable project. We've done a beautiful project in Lago Vista. We've done a couple others, but the one most recent that you did in Austin, gorgeous product, gorgeous, just full on production. You and Eddie absolutely crushed that. What are your thoughts on Da Vinci and where do you see it leading within the industry? And kind of give some insight on that for our luxury market who's looking to buy, you know, class 4 and above, great product to just complement their beautiful home.
Yeah, so first, we're certified through Da Vinci in order to provide their 50-year installation warranty. Now, there's some products that you need to use with Da Vinci in order to achieve that 50-year warranty. Otherwise, it'll max out like a 15, 25, and 50-year warranty. There's kind of prorations that kick in on that. But Da Vinci is a synthetic product. It's made to rival a cedar shake or either a slate. Now, on this job that you're speaking of, we installed a single width, 8-inch exposure, I think, on it. And it was a beautiful home. Now, prior to us entering this job, we went out and inspected the property. They had put a Da Vinci single width on, and they had installed I believe it was a Tamco ice and water shield. There was a huge delamination issue with this product. So if you looked on the back side of the roof, so the south and the west slope of the home, you would actually see where the ice and water shield was melting underneath the shingles all the way down to the perimeter edge. And on they had the beautiful live stone, you know, that white stone, Texas stone. The entire property was built out of that, so it was melting on that. So we came in and ended up having to remove all the way down to the rafters, full new redeck. So we're talking a 6-year-old Da Vinci roof, delamination issue, and we did a full redeck on the property. Now, they didn't install Tech Shield on the last job, so we installed a radiant barrier radiant barrier for there, we used a polyglass high temp ice and water shield, which Da Vinci kind of pushes for their products, believe it or not. Then we installed that Da Vinci single width with all copper trim. Now we subbed out, we allowed the GC that we were working with to sub out the gutters just because they wanted a 20-ounce copper gutter versus a 16-ounce. But the entire project, we had limited access to pretty much two sides of the yard and then the backyard. As we had a big pool, we couldn't get heavy equipment in. So it was just about creating a system to remove all of the debris off the roof system in a safe manner, and a little bit of coaxing for the neighbors, prepping them for everything else, creating incentive for them to allow us to use access points, which we do really well, right? So if you can be preemptive versus reactive in those situations, it really helps out. And then we were working with Outlaying Construction on this. It was an amazing general contractor. We'll actually be doing a preventative maintenance style job for them tomorrow as well. Fidel will be. So
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that it's crazy when you put all these pieces together and run a production. I mean, it's a work of art. And I love construction, and everyone agrees it doesn't always go as planned.
Yeah.
And there's a couple stories we can tell. One of the most significant stories for another product on a commercial assembly was the GAF SB 150 that we did downtown in a parking garage. Now, we talk about leadership. We talk about just people who are committed to excellence. And this story right here, I don't think exemplifies, I don't know what other story can exemplify who Hudson Whitten is better than this one. So talk about, real quick, your experience in the SB 150 and the wrench that was thrown in from day one. I mean, it just never went to plan, but for you to step up, get it done, take the miles that you did to get this thing done with the short time you had. Talk a little bit about that and that project, just to show that, like, not every project is just rainbows and butterflies. Like, there's problems, but it's not how you start, it's how you finish. And this one, by gosh, you finished strong.
Yeah, so with any project, we're dealing with people, so we all have the human condition, right? And that being said, sometimes tempers are elevated, so it's about being able to control those as best as possible. On this specific project, we had an ownership group that was taking over a garage in downtown Austin, and then we had a GC that we were working with, and everything pretty much fell on us. And it was in December, and we were having an extremely wet December in Austin. And with this SB 150 product, this is a GAF product. It's a street bond product used for asphalt, used for concrete. When you're using it on concrete versus asphalt, you're just using a different primer. I think we used the QS primer with the isotoner. So you have a part A, part B. The way that this goes is you clean the roof substrate down, on this case, concrete. We blow everything off. And then from there, we apply a primer, and we apply 4 layers of the SB 150. And whenever you apply that, you're basically using a squeegee, you're grading it, and then from there, back rolling it, right? In order for us to even get to the point that we could primer this, we had to fly equipment in from Las Vegas. Originally, we had GAF out, and it was around ACL. I even took the rep to ACL with me. We had a great time. ACL. Everything else, thought that would be in our favor. And then from there, we called out a scraper. So it looks like a Zamboni, right? That you sit in it, has this little scraper blade. You would think the scraper blade would be big, but in order to scrape, it's very small. It's only about 12 to 16 inches, I would say, and I could be off on that, and maybe 8. It's a small blade. From there, you take that little Zamboni and you pretty much scrape the pre-existing coating. On this parking garage, they had installed a pedestrian system, and they had installed multiple layers. So it had not bonded originally to the concrete properly. Don't know if they used a proper priming system. That's kind of what it looked like. So we could peel it back in some areas, and then in other areas, it kind of bonded to the concrete. Well, this stuff was thick. I mean, it was probably over a 1/4 inch thick, honestly, throughout the entire roof system. And we had to get down to the concrete on that. Now, originally, we were using the scraper. We tested it. Everything went great. Well, when push came to shove to get the job, they were out of the scrapers. And I was told that we had one reserved. I told we were good. They had no availability. And what it was is 2 of them had broken down. So at that point, they provide us with a grinder. Basically, it has 3 grinding wheels, big, heavy equipment. and we had limited access to get in and out of the garage. So we had to figure out a trailer to get it up. So just getting the equipment up on the roof was was eventful, to say the least. At the point that we got the grinder up on the roof, we broke that grinder. They sent out another grinder. Then from there, we ordered 2 bigger grinders from Las Vegas. And this was about 2.5 weeks that this all happened, from breaking teeth, figuring out the teeth that would work on this. And mind you, we had a 60 square section. So it was 40 squares, 20 squares on the down ramp, 40 squares on the lower tier, and then 20 squares on the down ramp. We had not even removed the roof system at a 2.5 week mark on this upper level. Well, when we got the grinders in from Vegas, they flew in a second one just in case, to ensure we had enough equipment in the event that we broke this grinder, because we just kept breaking grinders. Equipment rental company would come out, fix them. Then from there, we would run maybe an hour or two, think we would have a good motion. Next day we'd show up and it would break all over again. So we got to a point that we were grinding everything down. We were able to grind the top tier, second tier. And then at that point, we realized the amount of dust that we were creating, we were going to have to grind everything down. Now, once we exposed the concrete, our issue was with any rain or moisture that we had in the concrete, we had to allow the concrete to dry. And this concrete had not been exposed to the elements for a very long time. So it was super, super dry. At that point, we started applying a spray coat. Once we got everything clean, we got it prepped, we were good to go, we started applying the primer. I was off site for about a day, and I showed back up on site, and we had already sprayed like a big 60 square section. And when I looked at the yield of what we were using on the primer, you're supposed to use an airless primer. They were using air primer number 1, and we had another spray rig on site, so we had to rework that out. But because of the wind and the way that they were spraying, we were wasting so much product. So we get up there, I'm like, okay, let me look at the yield on that. All right, cool. We got this section taken care of, but from here, let's go ahead and start applying the SB 150. Now with that, I believe the cure times were anywhere from 24 to 48 hours. That may have changed based on the product, because this was a fairly new product at that time. That's what GAF was recommending for our cure time for our primer, to ensure that we installed the SB 150. So my main thing was like, okay, let's get the SB 150 down in these areas, and let's go ahead and get this first 60 square section installed, because we needed to get 4 layers. We had already had everything grinded. No dust was going to transfer over. We were good to go at that point. So we start applying the product. Once again, I leave the job site. I come back, and I already knew that we were going to be short on primer based on that first layer. I show back up, and basically on this, you have it's about a pint that you mix with a 5-gallon bucket. From there, you agitate it. The primer, I think you had to agitate it for about 5 minutes, let it sit for 30. With the actual SB 150 coating, a little bit differently, but you did need to mix it, set it. You pour it, you pretty much push it into place, and then from there, you back roll it. Now, when this product starts to dry, if you go to roll it or anything else, it's going to flake on you, because it was an acrylic brakes product. So we start applying the product. I leave the job site, and when I get back, I talk to our project manager, and I'm like, hey, have you been counting like how many buckets we're getting per square on this? And this was my fault. I didn't set somebody up for success. I should have been like, hey, in this cordon, I need to know how much product we're using. In this cordon, I need to know how much product we're using. When we go back for the second layer, I need to know. So we had applied 3 layers, and we were waiting for the 4th layer on it. And I had taken a look at our product, and I knew that we were going to be probably about 8 5-gallons short, so about 45 gallons short, to be able to install the 4 layers we needed to get the warranty for a high traffic system on this parking garage. At that point, I had you look up a flight. I was like, hey, I need a flight. There's a flight out to Boston. So, and I think it's Wapple is where the GAF, and I could be pronouncing that wrong. So sorry if you're from the Northeast, but I think it's Walpole, Massachusetts is where the plan is. I think you found a flight that got me in at around 2 a.m. I picked up a rental car truck. And then from there, I drove to a hotel. I think I slept for about 2 hours. I think I arrived at the Walpole GAF. I think they opened at 8, something like that. From there, I picked up the primer that we would need to finish the product. And I also picked up the extra 5-gallon buckets we needed of the SB 150. And then I proceeded to drive 20 hours straight into Memphis. I think I arrived in Memphis, so that was like 8:30 or something I left. I don't know. I think I arrived in Memphis in like 19 hours with like one stop for gas and one stop for food. I stayed at the Linden House.
Yeah.
I stayed at the Airbnb, and because I was there so short, I ended up sleeping on the couch, right? And then Trey was like, well, why don't you meet Parks? And this was when Parks came on, so we had a rep, Parks Flowers, that was with us. He came on, so there's a little breakfast place around the corner. I went and sat down, met with Trey for about an hour and a half, walked through a multifamily job, then got back on the road. And I think that was a 9 or 10 hour trip. And that got me arriving there somewhat midday. And at that point, we had already finished the 3 layers. We had held off on the 4th layer. We wanted to complete everything else. We were ready to start priming again with the primer that I had on site, because once you start, they want you to pretty much spray the entire primer. Wanted to get to a cure point in order to install the SB150. Now, once I got back from that flight with my limited sleep, I don't know if it was the acrylic product or if it was the stress that I was under, because when we were applying actually the 3rd layer on the lower section of the roof, we had weather come in. Now we had the second layer had cured totally, so I was totally fine. I just didn't know what this was going to do. So there was at one point on the roof that we had 2 huge fans blowing the roof, and then we had me, Colt, and 2 other guys with blowers, all from battery power blowers to everything, just blowing the entire roof while this mist came through in order to ensure that the roof was dry. Then we let it cure for a day. Then from there, start reapplying our 3rd and 4th coat on the roof system. But I think I had hives from the start of my wrist all the way down through my thighs for about 2 weeks. So probably most stressed that I've ever been. We just had headache after headache. And due to the fact of how long the project went and the additional equipment that we originally did not put into the budget of it, we still made a little bit of money on the job, but not as much as possible. We installed a really, really good product. Huge learning lesson. Yeah, I mean, I would tackle just about any waterproofing job at this point after going through all of that. Yeah.
And I love it. We asked the question if there's a divide between commercial and residential. And I think that story signifies not only leadership, but just what it takes in order to get things done within the commercial sector. Because, man, it takes a rare breed to be able to first acknowledge that there's an issue, then derive a solution, commit to that solution, flying to Boston in a 20-hour period to get back, or a 24-hour period.
It was a
30-hour period you had to get back. So taking that flight, 2 a.m., landing in Boston, getting 2 hours of sleep, picking up the product in a U-Haul, driving all the way to Memphis for a quick pit stop, and then waking up to get back in order to assure that the product showed up on time before cure time. So it just shows you, I mean, that story always just amazes me when people ask about, hey, what's the work ethic of Hudson? What is he like as a leader? And I'm like, dude, there's one story that could really educate who he is as an individual. So super crazy. Now with coatings, that was a high traffic system that we found on a parking garage. Now there's also coatings that are accessible and great candidates for preventative maintenance, for multifamily, for commercial. Talk about, coatings. What do you like about them? Do you think they're a great candidate?
I do, and there's a certain type of roof that they go for. So first things first, with coating, no matter whether it's acrylic or a high solid would be a silicone product. Moisture in a roof needs to be removed prior to putting that coating down. So with that being said, if there is moisture that is being trapped in a roof and you put a coating on it, it's just going to balloon up and cause issues. So there is a good candidate for a coating. Sometimes you do need to remove down to the substrate and rebuild the roof system up, create the proper slope. Coating's not always the answer. So that's first things first. But the versatility of coating, whether it's acrylic or a high solid, and looking at what it does on the thermal side, as well as like if you look at a silicone product, you can actually put it in a ponding area and a silicone can hold up to that ponding because it's a higher solid, as long as you're removing the moisture prior to putting that silicone coating. So it's the versatility of coating, the application of coating. I think there's like a company, I'll even give them a shout out right now, Nanotech Technology. Like they have thermal testing on the outside of like using 1,000-degree torch, like on 3 to 6 mils of product with 0 heat deflection. Like I think they're even working on the space shuttle. So it's really having the versatility on the thermal side, and the benefits that gives with using a coating, as well as the applied product using a fluid applied system. So if you look at like say an R panel building and somebody's going in for a retrofit TPO roof system on top of that, yeah, that's a great product. But the other thing is now we're putting a bunch more material on a building. How can we create longevity in the pre-existing building? So remove and replace loose fasteners, look at all the termination edge flashing, ensure that water is flowing properly, look at the curves on that, look at the penetrations, apply 3-course on the horizontal seams, on all the penetrations, and then actually do your dollops on all the fasteners on the roof system. And we can even do a preventative maintenance scope to where we're not fully coating the entire building. Now, we don't get the thermal benefits on that, but I like the fact that we're using less product on a building in order to create longevity versus dumping a bunch of more material on it. It's more cost effective for the owner. And once again, if we're doing it right, we're creating the paperwork for them to be able to write that off at the end of the year.
And talking about that, the cost effectiveness towards doing a coating, not only just for commercial properties, but residential. We have a unique opportunity when it comes to tile homes. You know, there's a huge expense when wanting to do a remove and replace of tile. If you want to change the appeal of the house itself, you have an orange tile roof or brown tile roof, and you want to switch to black. Talk about coatings and the opportunity there.
Yeah, so if you look at manufacturers, they don't have a lot of ratings from adding pigment into the coating application, because what happens is that actually changes the chemistry of that fluid applied system. Okay, we found a company, one out of California, and then actually Nanotech adds pigment to it. But we can do a fluid applied system with a primer. You make sure that you're cleaning your substrate that you're bonding to. In this case, it was a concrete tile. So you really have to clean it. From there, you have to let the tile dry out. Then you apply a primer, and you have a small grace window. Now, this was an acrylic-based product that we use on it. So just know it's going to look good for anywhere from 3 to 5 years. This one is at 2 years. We don't see any flaking on it. But acrylic will start to flake. Now, you can pressure wash it, clean it, and apply another coating on it. That's the way the product is going to work. And now, if you have a lot of moisture, it's going to bubble and truly like flake and rip off in those areas. But we were able to change to, I think it was a light gray roof. I just sat in as a consultant on this one. We were able to change to a light gray roof. He did black trim on the home with a white. I mean, it totally changed the dynamic and the aesthetics of the home versus being like a taupe color home with a pink color roof, right? And the other thing is we've done thermal readings inside the attic, and in the summer months, it's a decrease of almost 25 degrees.
Wow.
You know, you could go up into that attic and it would reach up into the 124, around that. And we had in the summer months, it was around 95. Last year, we did some rating.
So talk real quick, if I'm a homeowner and you want to tell me, and I have a tile roof and I'm wanting to change the color, and I've worked with other roofing companies and they're telling me that in order to change the color, I need to do a full roof replacement of tile. I sit down, I meet with you, just real quick in a nutshell. What does that look like for me to better understand an opportunity of what I can do on my roof system?
Well, first things first, we're going to look at how your tile system is installed. Do you have a substrate? So do you have a decking that the tile is sitting on? Is there ice and water shield underneath that decking? Or when we get up on your roof, is it installed on battens? Because that's going to kind of tell us how we treat this roof system. If it's sitting on battens, we got to be careful how we move around on that roof system to dislodge tiles. So we'll come in, take a look at the roof. From there, we'll provide a preventative maintenance scope for the tile work that's needed. So any broken tiles that need to be replaced, are the valleys functioning properly? Do we need to redo any of the lead on the plumbing stack? So we're going to look at all that. You know, your end cap flashing, your bird stop eave, all of that. We're going to take a look. Then from there, we'll clean the roof system once we do all the repairs. That way we try and limit water from coming into the home. The reason we're going to clean that, number one, we're going to get the tile clean to be able to bond our primer to it, as well as our top coat and finish coat on that. And then secondarily, it's going to be an active leak test on the property. So we're going to see if there's any additional leaks that we need to address prior to doing that. So we'll come in, provide a preventative maintenance scope, as well as a coating application for that. The color range is a little bit limited on it. With that being said, we can get within kind of the color that you want, especially if you're going towards the blacks, the grays, taupe colors. I think with Nanotech, they've even done, I think they did a Domino's. And in the success on the thermal side of this is they had a Domino's pizza. The kitchen crew was quitting on a regular basis because it was such a hot working environment for them. With that being said, don't know what the temperatures were in the inside consistently. I just know that once they got done applying the coating product with the HVAC equipment that they had, they were able to regulate that temperature in the kitchen and keep it around 72 degrees, which the kitchen staff loved at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And this was a fluid applied system that they applied with pigment in it in color.
So as a homeowner, to change the color and the aspect, not only am I changing it at a cost-effective level, but I'm also helping with my energy efficiencies overall and with the heating and the cooling of my house.
For sure. You're definitely doing that. The other thing that I would recommend is if we're actually putting a ventilation to draw heat out of your attic and then sealing up your conditioned airspace. So that's the number one important thing too. Sealing up your baseboards, crown moldings, any open access to your attic. That's number one, right?
And then understanding ventilation. Do you think a lot of people overlook the significance, or I would say the importance of having proper ventilation in your home?
I see it go both ways. Some people want to overkill the ventilation, like we had a customer that we were working with recently, and I won't name names. And this is, kind of a extreme, but he was like, well, I want ridge vent and I want the solar vent. And I'm like, look, you have soffit vents. If I install a ridge vent on your home and I install a static vent within 10 feet of that solar vent, it's not going to be drawing properly.
Against each other.
Yeah. So we see it on that side. And then the other thing is some people are like, oh, I just want to go back with like kind of quality. So what we try and do is if we're seeing soffit vents on the property, we have a big attic space and we have enough to upgrade to ridge vent, we're going to go ahead and cover up those slant back vents. Majority of the time when you see like a dome vent, those used to be actual power vents that we kicked in to draw them out. Now we're just seeing dome shells. So we'll cover up those hells, install ridge vent if we have enough linear footage to equate for the ratios of the square footage in the attic space. So there are equations which you can look at your manufacturer specs for any type of vent, from a 750, which is just a slant back vent, 770, or even a ridge vent. So just make sure that you're doing your math equations when ventilating somebody's home.
So as we kind of wrap up here, we got a little bit of time. We've talked about specialty products. We talked about coatings. We talked about multifamily. We talked about commercial. We talked about a little bit of everything. Talk to you about the love that you have for the roofing industry and the impact that it's had on not only just your business career, but your life as well.
Yeah, so roofing is something that I approached at a young age. I kind of did during the winter. I would work as painting because I worked at a golf course and also cabana boy. So I was in the construction industry and I did mainly framing, painting, stuff like that. Never really approached roofing, but I got a job with a restoration company out of Plano. And one of the gentlemen there owned a side hustle, and it was a roofing business. So this was kind of the first light that I saw as far as turnaround times, profit margins on jobs, and being able to add value to a customer and being able to do it at a fast pace. Now, I entered into roofing as a 1099 rep with TrueFast, and it was when I started understanding technical assemblies and I was traveling all over the country. And quite honestly, I was having fun with it. I would be in a rental car, I'd be in a hotel, I'd be able to eat what I want, be able to expense what I want. I was meeting new contractors, and I was building a database for myself based off of applied knowledge in the field. So I was getting paid to get an education. And I didn't really know that I was going to love roofing, but at that point I took to it so fast. So it was the fact that I enjoyed the challenge, especially with the commercial assembly and the value that I could add in that space. And then after meeting the contractors that were out in the field selling these jobs, I was like, whoa, my knowledge is far beyond these guys. And if they're able to sell it, I think there's a future with this, right? Then the next level on that is learning the residential game. At that point, I got into a sales manager role, and I was bidding on new construction because I understood plans and everything else. But it was the value that I could add to others based off of my knowledge that truly redefined a purpose inside me. I didn't know it at the time, but I enjoyed seeing a finished product. I enjoyed working with the customers, but also being able to build a sales team and provide the knowledge that I had within inside me to create incentive for somebody else to make a living for themselves. That's what truly kind of ignites me now. It's a more defined purpose, being able to help others in the roofing space. And whenever my phone rings, be able to answer any question with confidence. Or if I can't answer that question, I know who I need to reach out to in order to add value at a very, very fast turnaround time, right?
100%. And knowing that you've been in this industry for a while, it's had a huge impact on your life. If I'm new to the industry as far as sales and I'm looking for an opportunity, what would you tell me in terms of what roofing has to offer and why it could be an awesome opportunity for myself?
Yeah, so I mean, you can hop onto any roofing company. So first things first, what is kind of your moral stance? What is your purpose? What do you really want to do? And how do you want to affect the roofing space? And then if you kind of narrow that down and you're all in and you want to do roofing, who are the people that you're surrounding yourself with? What is your support network and group? Because my first roofing job, whenever I stepped out, it literally, a dude was like, here's a ladder, here's a slick, go knock on the door and get it. You'll figure it out. You'll figure it out. We didn't have ChatGPT. We didn't have any scripts. Like, you could find scripts. I will say we could do that, but you didn't have the information that we have on hands today. So literally you would knock on a door. And I will say at that time, it was easier to talk to people at doors.
Yeah.
I will say that though. It was easier to talk to people at the doors. And real quick, I figured out having a conversation with somebody is all you had to do, right? What did you ask me?
No, if I'm like a new person to the industry, what would you tell me? And you're doing great.
No, so if you're a new person, what do you want to get out of the roofing space? What is your moral stance and what is your commitment to yourself? So how many hours are you going to put in on a day-to-day basis? Is it going to be 20 hours, 30, 40? And then what is your support group? So who is the person above you that is teaching you the sales process? What are the systems that you have that you're going to be able to use and move at a very fast speed? Technology. What technology are you using to set yourself up? And then the other thing is how are you educating yourself on product knowledge? Is your company providing those resources for you on a regular basis? Then lastly, and this may even go in the first, but I'm just saying it lastly, is the culture. What is the culture of the individuals? Do they take care of themselves? Are they in a good mood? Are they a negative person? How do they approach people on the street whenever they meet them? So I would really be looking at the support group that you have around you. And I mean, that's why you and Trey are the closest people that I have around me. Like my best friend group is very small. I got Aubrey, you, and pretty much Trey. Now I have a lot of friends outside of that, but these are the people I spend my most time with because I grow more when I'm spending time with these individuals.
I've noticed that's a cool factor about Cool Roofs is just the constant growth that people have within our organization of just becoming better every day.
Right.
It's phenomenal. But no, it's just been super exciting. We're going to have multiple more podcasts to come in terms of commercial assemblies, just the skill set that this individual has, Mr. Hudson Whitten. But appreciate you joining in. If you can, as I always say, just click the bottom, the little button below to subscribe to our channel. That is just an opportunity for us to see the commitment of those out there wanting to learn and gives us an excitement to just continue to produce more and more valued content to help you out and better understand commercial roofing as a whole, leadership, the personal development, whatever it may be. We just want to add value to the marketplace. So appreciate you all. We'll have a wonderful day and let's keep rocking.
Let's go.
Oh.